Hi, welcome to IAS Factor by LearnStroke, and we are discussing the 2024 mains examination is already happened, and the first paper, essay paper, is already out. So I should say that this time's essay paper was a very easy paper. I think most of the questions were pretty answerable. In the first instance, when you read the question, it was very simple to answer. But ultimately, you should know how to answer it. So let's take a look at the two questions. As you know, essay format is consists of 250 marks. There are two essays, 125 marks for an essay. And maybe you can just take a look at this. 125 marks for a single essay. You have to write two essays, and there are two sections, A and B, and both you have to write for 100 and 1000 to 1200 words. That means you should write around 10 to 12 pages in the mains answer paper. You have to write that much. So be very clear on that. So there are section A and section B, which I'll be discussing. So let's take a close look at what are the section A. We'll discuss each and every question, and maybe when you get the question, you can also think which question will you answer if you were writing the mains examination. Let's see, out of the section 1, you have to write one important thing from this. Let's take the questions. Forest precedes civilization and deserts follow them. Will you write this question? Check it out. And the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. Okay, this is the second one. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. I think most of you will write this because it's very simple, because there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. The doubter is a true man of a science. So I should say this is also a bit difficult. It is easy if you are coming from a science background, it will be easy. Otherwise, maybe it can be a difficult thing. Maybe it all depends upon how you write it. And this is section B. You have to write one essay from this section also. Social media is triggering the fear of missing out, the FOMO. This is something very popular recently. This all of the Gen Z people, Gen Z Alpha people talk about FOMO. So what is this fear of missing out? You must have heard this thing. So this is a question. So this is pretty answerable. You can definitely answer this. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. I think this is a very, very famous quote by Abraham Lincoln. So if you want to write this answer, you need to have a good clarity on a lot of things. All ideas having large consequences are always simple. Again, this is another important one. And the eighth one is, the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So I think section B, when you take a look at section B, so let's analyze section A. I'm not going to give out all the points of this mains examination, but definitely when you say that you have to write a mains answer, that means I think you know the UPSC answer sheet. Definitely you have to write 10 to 12 pages is not so easy. Writing 10 to 12 pages is not at all easy here. So you need to have a very good introduction, and you need to spread out your answer like this. So most often, how essay answers actually work is you need to spread out your answers with good introduction, with good conclusion, and like compartments like this. You can write the pros, you can write different examples, merits, features. Spread out your answer so that your answer will have the balance. That is very, very important. So in order to have this balance, it is very, very important. So in order to get this correct, you need to fill each and every compartment like this. You have to fill all this. It takes time, and it needs good points, and it needs good thought to write this. Okay, so here we go. So by this time, you can actually take a look which is the one essay that you'll write from 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you can decide. And when you go for section B, what will be the important thing that you'll write here? So let's discuss each and every one here. And let's go to the first important one. And meanwhile, I've given an answer booklet in the description. You can check the YouTube, you can check the description, and you can write 1 or 2 essays. And if you want the essay to be corrected, you can send this. You can say, take a look at the screen. You will see a number here. You can send your answer paper, download the answer book, print it, write the answer and take a photo and send it as a WhatsApp. We can actually give you a feedback on your essay and how your essay has gone forward. How much mark will you get? I can actually connect you through that. So here we go. When you get an essay, forest precedes civilization and deserts follow them. How do you relate this question? See, in the most number of questions, you will understand one important thing, that take a look at this. Forest precedes, is this don't think that this is just an environmental question. This is also a psychological or a philosophical question. This is also a philosophical question too. The empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. This is also a philosophical question. But you can write this question from any perspective that you want. It need not be written only from a philosophical perspective. You can write it anyway. See, people say that when you write an essay, you can even write a story. You can even write this essay as a story. You can even write this as a poem. You can bring in examples, write, the mode of operation, how you approach this is entirely your call. But it should be really good. Make sure the balance is there. So this is also a happiness. This is also a philosophical type of question. You can bring in Buddhism, Taoism, all of this thing. This is definitely a science. Even though you can approach it philosophically, you need to bring in a lot of examples of science and other related things. So definitely this might need some experiences. And definitely this is something related to do with Indian society and the recent society. So definitely this is a society and the recent society question, social media and all stuff. And nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. So this has got some elements of politics. You can write in polity, power, authority, government. You can bring in all such aspects in this question. All ideas having large consequences are always simple. You can agree or disagree with this statement also. So this is also a philosophical question. Maybe you can bring in a lot of other things also. So this time, I would say many of the questions were pretty easy and answerable if you knew how to write it. Okay, so let's take a look at the first important essay, and I'm not gonna give out all the answers, but definitely I'll give you important points. So forest precedes civilizations and deserts follow them. Definitely you can actually connect it from a different perspective. To write 10 pages or 12 pages, as I said, you need to spread out your essay answers like this. Make sure you have a good introduction. Make sure you have a conclusion, you have an introduction. And between this, you can actually divide it into different parts. I would call it as different compartments. You can bring in different aspects. But when you bring in different aspects, that is when your essay becomes a balanced essay. It's not that you write 3 pages, 3 to 4 pages you write only about the positives, 1 page you write about the negatives, and 3 pages you write something else. You mix up everything. No, it should be clean. That is why I said intro, conclusion, and between that lines you see, then your answer essay become balanced. Okay, that is the concept. So forest precedes civilization. Forests precede civilization and deserts follow them. So you can actually have a different approach from this. One is the growth and decay angle. As you say, civilizations, everything, the world, even because human civilizations came into being, you can see that everything was actually a wild thing. Everything was actually in wilderness. Everything was actually in forest. And from that point onwards, everything started to evolve. Humans evolved. Human activities evolved, everything evolved, and human progress actually came in. And finally, you can actually mark it as desert. So what is it symbolizing? Forest can symbolize harmony, resources. It can symbolize wealth, prosperity, and deserts can symbolize, it can symbolize something very low, or emptiness. It can even refer to emptiness. You can measure it as emptiness. So it can growth and decay. So one is you can write it from the perspective of environment, that man has created, or before man everything was nature, and after that due to the activities of man, environmental degradation, deforestation, you can bring in all the other things. It is actually going to desert, means it is going to an empty path. Climate change, everything, you can bring everything from, see, or basically understand, you can bring in the growth and decay theory in this. environment in this. That will be a good thing you can understand. Then you can bring in human progress and price. See, before the nature, everything, before humans, the nature was completely, and from that, humans progressed. But if the humans are not progressing in the right path, what will happen is humans will have to pay the price for that. And that is why you say that can be a big issue, and that is why deserts means emptiness can happen, climate change can happen, all the luxury will be lost. That angle can be brought in. It can also, you can also bring in the concept of hope and responsibility. So, don't think that whatever dimensions I am bringing in, you can bring in any dimensions. But whatever dimensions you bring in, make sure you bring in every dimension so that your answer becomes a balanced one. So this was paper question number 1. And let's take a look at the next important question. The empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. If I'm not mistaken, this is a very famous quote of Winston Churchill. Again, a very famous quote. You can see it. Empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. So you imagine that you can have one empire and this is the future. You can see this is mind. Previously you can understand that since the time of history, previously every empire was built from military, might, army. The foundations of an empire, it can actually be from philosophical or any perspective. It was all created on power, hard power. But now in the future, it is going to be the mind. Mind doesn't mean that the previous empires were not built with mind, but definitely power was the most important thing in the previous times, the foundation of power. Now everything will be based on the mind. That means physical to intellectual dominance. The word is intellectual, mind or intellectual. The future empires is going to be of the mind, of the intellectual property right. Everything will be of creativity, of mind. Everything will be different. And you can also see knowledge. So it will be based on intellectual dominance. The new empires will be knowledge of new money. Knowledge is the new currency. And it will be an empire of ideas. It will be values, cultural influence, like rise of tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, everything. Every rise is actually based on our thinking, our creativity, our mind, our intellectual, our capacity, technology, and ability to adapt to this technology. All of this is the future. And when you compare it with the future, past, definitely you can see that this has evolved. So innovation in education, so all these aspects. So the ultimate question is, how are you connecting this answer? So you can connect it in different way. The empires of the future. You can talk about the present future and how this new empire of technology, AI has actually come in, and how the technology, how it transitioned, how it was in the past and how it has actually transitioned, and what will be the future, and how are humans going to react to it. See, always understand, essay means spread out. Introduction, conclusion, and this portion that you have to write, make sure that you have different compartments. The number of more compartments shows your range of the answer. If you have more compartments, means it's more range of the answers. It will be really, really good. So definitely this was a question you could have really answered this question. There is no path. Next question, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. I should say that this is the most easiest question if you have read Buddhism, Taoism. Lot of spiritual concept also say there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. You can bring in economics, you can bring in sociology, you can bring in administration, you can bring in government, you can bring in civil service, you can bring anything. But ultimately, it is all about enjoying the process. People say that, just imagine, you can even draw a diagram also. You can even draw a picture which says that this is the destination. Maybe it is the destination and maybe it is the starting point. You can always remember, you can even draw an image like this. It's all about traveling like this. One step, you can see one step you travel like this, one step you travel, and finally you reach your destination called X. There is the flag here. So it is even said that you can agree or disagree that there is no path to happiness, because there is no path to happiness. This is path number A. There is another path called B. You cannot have a path for A and B. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. That means you should always enjoy the process. You can bring in Buddhism, other philosophical or spiritual concepts that you know, and relate it to life. See, even you can write, being an IAS officer, preparing for civil services also, you believe that only getting IAS gives you happiness, or happiness is dependent on something. No, the journey of how we go from this point to this point, enjoy that moment, live in the present. That is why enjoy the process, live in the present, bringing Buddhism and Taoism, inner peace, celebrate small victories along the way. Today and tomorrow you got a small victory, celebrate that. That small happiness is ultimately what happiness is all about. Such perspectives should be brought in. So you can agree or disagree with this, but definitely I'm sure you can agree with this, because happiness is the path. You cannot depend anybody on happiness, so you will have to find happiness on your way. It's a very good question. If you can connect with so many other things, everybody writes different answers, but if you can connect it, the balance, if it is good, then it is really better. So this is the next question, and probably moving on to the next is, the doubter is a true man of science. I think, I don't know how many of you would love to write this answer, but if you want to write this, a doubter is a true man of science. If you're a scientist, if you're a man of science, you want to prove, you need evidence, you need scientific facts, and you need to say it is right, it is wrong. You need facts, evidences. If you are not a man of questioning, if you are not questioning anything, I'm giving you theory X, take it. This is theory X. Believe it. No, as a man of science, you will crisscross the theory and you will understand what are the merits of this, whether X is right, whether X can be disproved. So as a man of science, you should always be rational. You should always question it. So this needs a scientific approach, and this brings in the concept of skepticism. If you must have heard about a concept of skepticism, and don't blindly follow anything. Be a man of science, you need proof, you need evidence for everything. So skepticism is again the concept. So bring in skepticism, you can write it from religious perspective, politics, arts. You need scrutinize, you need evidence to scrutinize everything, and you need to explore alternate paths, explanation like this. And one important concept, when I had this topic, I thought I'll explain this concept. Something of very famous concept of Karl Popper. So it's called the falsibility. It's a falsibility principle. It's a very important concept in philosophy. Karl Popper's falsibility. You also use it in ethics also sometime. See, falsibility simply means a theory that can be tested and potentially proven false by evidence. I said theory X. You should always find out an evidence and say that this theory X is wrong. So that is falsibility. So this is important because it helps us separate science from things that can be tested. So science means you can test it, you can prove it, disprove it. So that is the concept of falsibility. I thought I'll just give you this idea also. Like, take an example. All apples are red is something that you can assume. It's a principle. Falsibility say that this is a good scientific theory, but if you find an apple is green, that is very important. You find there is apple which is called green, then the theory is wrong. What does the theory say? Then the theory is wrong means your theory is absolutely wrong. That means all apples are not red. Some apples are even green. So you can disprove this. This is falsibility. But there is an invisible, untouchable dragon inside this room or your room. You cannot prove it scientifically because you cannot touch it. You cannot prove it. This is invisible. You cannot prove it. So this is the theory of falsibility. So definitely answering such questions needs to have a certain element of science. I don't know how many of you will write this. So that was from section A. You should have written a one answer. And quickly moving on to next is FOMO. Everybody was, you must have definitely heard about FOMO, missing out. This is something very new which people say. You upload an Instagram reel, you see something in the Facebook, you see something in threads, you see something in Instagram which people are celebrating. You see a reel of your age group, a person who is celebrating in Maldives. He's celebrating with his friends, he's celebrating with his girlfriend, his boyfriend. He's having a very absolutely great time. And you are sitting somewhere and you feel that you're not getting all this. You're not getting a good girlfriend. You're not getting good job. You're not able to celebrate your vacation. And you see that you're missing out something. missing out something in life, that I am a worthless man, fear of missing out. And most of the youth, uh, it's a theory which people say, science, the studies say that it is the social media is triggering out this FOMO, which is keeping men and women, children and people in a loneliness and depression. So do you agree with this or not? You can have your own views on that. So make sure whatever you get, essay means spread out the answer. You need to spread out with an introduction and a conclusion. Spread out this whole thing, and definitely you can see whether it is true or not. So how is social media triggering? Definitely you can write about inadequacy and low self-esteem. When you feel that you are not good enough, when you compare yourself with the other people, when you see other people's benefits, you see that you are missing out something. And also unrealistic expectation about life and relationship. You feel that your friend is having a greater time with his friend or his wife or his spouse or girlfriends. You feel that why I'm not getting this. It can be anything. And highlight reels, likes, comments, shares, etc. So these are something about social. When it is about social media, definitely people are concerned when your friend gets more likes, he gets 1,000 likes, you have a feeling that I'm not getting it. So you should write it from the social media perspective, why it is happening. So definitely you should write FOMO, why it is happening and why people are getting affected. What is the solution? What is the way forward? How can you actually, so definitely talks about exclusion. You're excluded. So how can you prevent this? So in order to prevent this, you need to upgrade yourself mentally. So what should be done to the youth of this country, to the social media? How should they given approaches? So if you bring in all these aspects, your essay will be really good on this. Definitely your essay will be good on this. And the next question was, nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. Abraham Lincoln's very famous quote, if I am not mistaken. This is absolutely a good topic. You can bring in a lot of questions from polity, administration, government, India. You can bring in a lot of things. It's simple. See, nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. Adversity means definitely problems. So imagine that this is a problem and all people are working on this. Some people will already die here. People will not be able to overcome this, but some people will overcome this. They have, there were a lot of people, A, B, C. Out of a lot of people, 100 people, this is the challenge circle. All who face this challenge, some people were able to overcome this adversity. They are people who can overcome the struggles. But nearly all men can stand adversity. Out of 100, a lot of people can stand this. Even you can also overcome a lot of challenges and be strong. But to test the character, that is the equation here. If you want to test the character of ABC, you have to give them power. You have to give them power. And let's see, when you give them power, maybe only A will win. B and C will fall. This is the theory. Out of 100, everybody cannot overcome power, adversities or challenges. Some can, nearly all men. Even this is, all men doesn't mean that it is not including women. It's a very normal term, or larger term. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. That means, let's take it from a different perspective. ABC, they can take out of 100, imagine that 10 or 15 people can stand adversity or difficulties, but out of that, if you give them power, only few of them will sustain. Only few of them will actually succeed here, as I have drawn in the picture. You know why? When you get power, you have to decide. You become a leader. You have to use the power for goodness as well as for badness. You can use the power. It can result in negative and positive outcomes. So when you get power, your true values will be exposed. Till then you are only struggling, but I've given you power. When you get power, when you use the power, your values, your ideas and your softness, your negatives, everything will be exposed. Your motivations, your priority, it will amplify both your negative and positive traits. See, you are actually facing challenges, but when I gave you power, when I asked you to take a decision, you used your power, but that can have a positive impact and a negative impact. So that will amplify your positive and negative impacts. So checks and balances. So this is all men can stand, but if you get power, you can write it from administrative perspective, you can write it from a citizen perspective, how you should use your power. And everybody faces challenge, how you should use your power. You should actually write it from that perspective. Definitely that would have been a good answer. And all ideas having large consequences are always simple. You can agree or disagree with this. But I should say all ideas having large consequences are always simple. You cannot generalize this. You cannot say that all ideas which are very, say, take an example, E is equal to mc square, or Darwin's theory, liberty, equality and fraternity. These are all ideas. These ideas are very simple. Liberty, equality, fraternity, E is equal to mc square, or Darwin's theory. Main theories, they might be very simple. See, take an example, liberty. Revolutions have brought in a lot of words. So equality, liberty, it's a very small thing. But the word, it's very simple. But the consequences of liberty are massive, monumental, very, very high consequences. But you cannot generalize and say that all ideas are having large consequences, simple. But you can definitely say that most of the ideas around the world, in administration, in theory, in life, in religion, in different walks of life, are simple. But the larger meaning, its consequence, its impact, it's huge. It transcends a lot of other circles. So if you can bring in, when you write the answer, if you can bring in introduction and conclusion and this range, you can bring in maximum dimensions, means definitely you can bring in maximum dimensions, means it's really good, or else it's very important. You can definitely bring in the theories also. So this was the and moving on to, I think, the last question. The cost of being wrong, the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So what is it? The cost of, there are two pathways. One, there is a pathway and there is another pathway, and this is the pathway that means every moment you travel, you are making mistakes, you're making mistakes, you're making mistakes, you're making mistakes. And this path is that, the specialty of this path is that you are not started, you have not started. You have not started the journey at all. This is the simple thing. So it is actually asking you to weigh the merits of that. One path is called A, you can take in the picture, and the second path is B. And you are a person here. If you're going in the path of A, you make a lot of mistakes. You can just see mistake, mistake, mistake. You do a lot of wrongs. In the path B, the biggest happiness is you have not even started. You're not ready to travel the path. So the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. The cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So you should actually, doing nothing often stems from the fear of failure. Mistakes provide valuable feedback. Proactive and courageous approach. So when you see the two parts A and B, it's always interesting to understand. Please do something. The path of mistakes, you do one step, it can be wrong, it can be negative, but it can give you feedback. Each and every mistakes that you make in life will actually teach you something. So you can write this perspective, write this philosophical part in even civil service examination, preparing for it is also like this. Anything, whether you do a job, whether you work in an administration system, whether even you can tell about the various civilizations of the world, the historical, start from Indian history, Chandragupta Maurya to Ashoka, everybody took the path. Continuous wrongs to wrongs, they evolved and they evolved and evolved and they got refined. Maybe you can bring in all the concepts like this. So if you can bring in all these concepts, definitely, I'm sure you could have really written this answer well. So that is it. So I'm going to come up with the other GS papers also. So as I said, if you want to, the description, check out the description. I've given you a PDF. You can download that. You can print out. You can write an essay or both the essays and send it to this number. Maybe just write 2 essays and send it. I'll try to give you the feedback also. I'll make a feedback video for all of this. so that all of the other people will see how the answer is getting corrected. Okay, so keep in touch with IAS Factor, do subscribe and follow our channel.